There are few sitcom mothers more memorable than Rochelle Rock from Everybody Hates Chris.
Oh, baby, your temperature is 103.
Can I stay home from school?
No, just put this ice pack under your head. You'll be all right.
And Mary Cooper from Young Sheldon.
How you feeling, baby? I'm sure you'll feel better in the morning.
Hey, Mom. You know how twins can feel each other's pain?
You're going to school tomorrow.
At first, they seem completely different. Rochelle is loud, aggressive, quick to explode, and constantly worried about money. Mary is calmer, deeply religious, and usually presents herself as the voice of reason in the Cooper household. But underneath those differences is something remarkably similar. Both women believe that being a good mother means protecting their children, controlling their environment, and making difficult decisions for the family. And that is exactly where things become complicated, because Rochelle and Mary are not simply good mothers or bad mothers. Across their respective shows, both women have moments where their decisions are completely understandable, moments where they go too far, and moments where the audience can finally see the woman behind the mother. The biggest difference is not how much they love their families. It is how that love comes out. From the beginning of Everybody Hates Chris, Rochelle is established as a mother who wants more for her children. In the pilot, she pushes the family toward moving out of the projects and sends Chris to a predominantly white school because she believes it will give him a better education. Chris may hate the long commute and everything that comes with the new school, but Rochelle is thinking beyond his immediate comfort. She is trying to change his future. Mary does something similar with Sheldon. She knows Sheldon is different from the rest of the family, and instead of treating his intelligence as something that should simply be ignored, she fights to make sure he gets opportunities that match his abilities. But Mary's protection comes with another condition. She wants Sheldon to remain within the moral and religious boundaries she believes will keep him safe. That difference is important. Rochelle is primarily trying to give her children better opportunities. Mary is often trying to give her children the right direction. And this is where both women begin making decisions their children do not necessarily understand. Rochelle's parenting is particularly noticeable because she does not believe children should always get what they want. In the episode Everybody Hates Halloween, Chris wants to attend a party, but Rochelle makes him take Drew and Tonya trick-or-treating instead. From Chris's perspective, she is ruining one of the most important nights of his teenage life. But from Rochelle's perspective, Chris is the oldest child, and that comes with responsibility. Mary operates under a similar philosophy, although her methods are different. She constantly reminds Sheldon that intelligence does not excuse bad behavior. Being the smartest person in the room does not mean he can ignore everyone else's feelings, family rules, or religious beliefs. The difference is that Chris is usually being asked to sacrifice his freedom for his siblings, while Sheldon is often being asked to sacrifice his certainty for Mary's values. That creates two very different kinds of conflict. Rochelle's household is shaped by responsibility, while Mary's is shaped by belief. And both mothers can become extremely stubborn when those principles are challenged. One of Rochelle's most revealing parenting moments comes in Everybody Hates Sausage.
You're eating the sausage.
When Tonya refuses to eat the sausage the family has been given, Rochelle turns the situation into a battle of wills. It is funny because the conflict becomes absurdly intense, but it also reveals something genuine about Rochelle. She grew up understanding that food should not be wasted, and that children cannot simply reject whatever they do not like. Mary has her own version of this stubbornness. When she believes something is morally wrong, she rarely treats it as a matter of opinion. Her faith gives her a framework for deciding what is acceptable and what is not. That can make Mary seem judgmental, especially when she applies her beliefs to people who do not share them. But it also explains why she is so consistent. Rochelle's rules often come from experience. Mary's rules often come from conviction. Neither woman is particularly good at saying, "Maybe I'm wrong," and that becomes one of their biggest weaknesses. But there is another side to Rochelle that is easy to overlook. She is not simply a strict mother. She is also a woman who is carrying a tremendous amount of pressure. The Rock family does not have much money. Julius is famously careful with every dollar, and Rochelle constantly has to navigate the reality of raising 3 children with limited resources. Season 1 in the episode Everybody Hates Food Stamps is a perfect example. Rochelle wants to use food stamps, but becomes embarrassed when someone she knows sees her using them. The situation is funny, but underneath the comedy is Rochelle's fear of being judged for her family's financial situation. Mary's financial circumstances are different, but she also carries pressure that the children do not always see. She is trying to maintain a household with 3 very different children, while supporting Sheldon, dealing with George, and trying to keep the family connected to her religious beliefs. And unlike Rochelle, Mary has an additional problem. She is constantly forced to choose between her children. Sheldon requires enormous attention because of his intelligence and unusual behavior. Missy does not demand the same attention, and George Jr. is often left to handle his own problems. This creates one of Mary's greatest weaknesses as a mother. She loves all 3 children, but she does not always treat them equally. Rochelle has a similar problem, although the show presents it differently. Drew is naturally charismatic, while Chris struggles socially. Tonya is the youngest and often finds ways to manipulate the situation. Rochelle's reactions to each child therefore change depending on what they need. But there is a major difference. Rochelle is often openly demanding. Mary can be unintentionally unfair while believing she is doing the right thing. That makes Mary's mistakes more complicated. We see this particularly in the way she treats George. George is frequently expected to understand Sheldon because Sheldon is special, while George's own needs can be pushed aside. This eventually contributes to one of the most revealing moments in young Sheldon. During a heated argument, George challenges the family dynamic by asking, in effect, whether anyone has ever stopped to consider what he wants. That moment matters because George has spent years being the person who is expected to compromise, and Mary does not always realize how much he has sacrificed. Rochelle, meanwhile, has a completely different relationship with Julius. She can criticize him constantly, but she also depends on him. Their marriage is full of arguments, yet underneath the comedy, there is a genuine partnership. This becomes especially obvious when Julius takes a better-paying job at the fish market in season 1. The job gives him more money and more free time, but the smell becomes a problem for the family. The episode shows something important about the Rocks. Even when money is tight, family decisions are rarely simple. Rochelle may complain about Julius, but she understands what he is sacrificing. Mary does not always extend the same understanding to George, and this is one of the strongest differences between the 2 mothers. Rochelle tends to fight with her husband. Mary sometimes fights against her husband's judgment. But if we want to understand Rochelle properly, we also have to look at her relationship with her own mother. Everybody Hates Funerals gives Rochelle one of the most vulnerable moments of the entire series. When her father suddenly dies, Rochelle becomes emotionally shut down. The woman who normally yells at everyone suddenly struggles to process what happened. Her father's death exposes a softer side that her family rarely sees. That episode is important because it reminds us that Rochelle's anger is not her entire personality. She is also someone's daughter. She has her own unresolved relationship with her mother, and she is capable of enormous emotional pain. Mary receives similar moments in young Sheldon, particularly when the show allows us to see her outside her role as Sheldon's mother. Her faith, her relationship with George, and her complicated relationship with her children reveal that her strictness is partly connected to fear. Mary is terrified of losing control over her family, and because of that, she sometimes tries to control things she simply cannot control. She cannot control Sheldon's personality. She cannot control George's decisions. She cannot control Missy's feelings. And eventually, she cannot control the direction her children take as they grow older. Rochelle faces the same reality. Chris is becoming a teenager. Drew is becoming more independent. Tonya is developing her own personality. Rochelle can punish them, lecture them, and threaten threaten them, but she cannot stop them from becoming their own people. This is why some of her funniest moments are also revealing. When Chris wants independence, Rochelle often interprets it as disrespect. Mary does something similar with Sheldon, although Sheldon makes the situation even harder because he is determined to question almost every rule. But there is one major advantage Rochelle has over Mary. Rochelle rarely hides the fact that she is flawed. She screams, she gets angry, she changes her mind, she makes embarrassing mistakes, and the audience knows exactly what she is thinking. Mary, on the other hand, often believes she is the reasonable one. That makes her mistakes more subtle. When Mary interferes in her children's lives, she can genuinely believe she is protecting them, and that is why viewers can sympathize with her while still criticizing her. By the later seasons of Everybody Hates Chris, Rochelle's life also begins changing. In season 4, she helps Tonya get a job at a beauty salon, showing that her relationship with her daughter is not simply about punishment and rules. She is also trying to prepare Tonya for adulthood. Mary has the same instinct, wanting her children to be prepared for the world. But because Sheldon is so unusual, that becomes much more difficult. She knows that the child she is protecting may eventually go somewhere she cannot follow, and that realization sits underneath many of her decisions. Rochelle is raising children in a world she believes can be dangerous, while Mary is raising children she knows will eventually leave the world she has built around them. So, which mother is better? Honestly, neither. Rochelle is more openly aggressive, but she is also practical and resilient. Mary is more measured, but her religious certainty and favoritism can create genuine problems within her family. Rochelle's strictness can sometimes go too far, while Mary's desire to protect her children can become controlling. Yet both women make sacrifices their children do not fully appreciate. Rochelle wants Chris, Drew, and Tonya to have opportunities she never had, while Mary wants Sheldon, George, and Missy to grow into people who can eventually survive without her. That is what makes Rochelle Rock and Mary Cooper so interesting to compare. They are not perfect mothers, but they are not villains either. They are women trying to raise children while dealing with money, marriage, religion, social pressure, fear, and their own emotional struggles. Rochelle responds to those pressures by becoming louder and more confrontational, while Mary responds by becoming more controlling and protective. But underneath those different personalities is the same fear. What happens if I stop protecting my children? Rochelle's answer is to keep fighting, while Mary's is to keep guiding. But their children eventually teach them the same lesson. You can protect your children, advise them, and sacrifice for them, but eventually you have to let them become their own people. That is where Rochelle and Mary are most alike. Both spent years believing that being a mother meant knowing what was best, and sometimes they were right. Other times, they were completely wrong. But even when they made mistakes, their actions usually came from the same place. They loved their families so much that letting go was almost harder than fighting for them. And maybe that's why audiences can laugh at Rochelle, get frustrated with Mary, criticize both of them, and still understand them. Neither woman was simply trying to be a perfect mother. They were trying to be their family's mother. And those are two very different things.